Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning. Welcome to the Sunday edition of Racing Across America. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. The day after edition, not only the day after the Belmont Stakes, but the day after the Triple Crown this year, back in its normal spot. First Saturday in May, and a couple of weeks after that, 3 weeks after that, the Belmont now in the books. It was a gorgeous day yesterday. We'll talk a little bit about it as the show, we'll talk plenty about it as the show progresses this morning. Before we go any further, though, let me remind you that today at the Clubhouse Racebook, there is a match bet promotion if you'd like to come down on the day after. Hopefully you're flush. Come on down and enjoy the air conditioning, as it will be a scorcher today. But watch the races and maybe get a little extra cash with the match bet promotion this afternoon. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Yesterday's promotion was the OTB Live Bankroll, and turned out well. Made I think everybody walked away with just under $30 of free money, courtesy of Capital OTB. Had a couple of nice hits during the afternoon, and it was fun. People were kind of milling about, and we were chatting, and hopefully some folks maybe tossed some of the ideas into their mix as well. But the bankroll team walked away, as I say, with a little free money on the day yesterday. So the bankroll's over going back to Mike Callahan and his crazy knock it out of the park $9,500 pick five the day before the Preakness, Oaks Day, going back to that. So we're a month and a half or so into a number of the bankrolls, making folks money. You do want to participate? Check out the website for more info on the promos and events and bankrolls coming up. A little bit later on, I'll do some handicapping towards the end of the show, as we normally do on a Sunday, but obviously with the big day of racing, we wanted to go over the stakes action yesterday at Belmont. And normally I would get my man Steve Bick to come in, being live at the Triple Crown venues, and we had him in after the Derby, we had him in after the Preakness. But wouldn't you know it, he's doing a little sightseeing down in New York today. He's going Bronx Zoo today with the family. So instead, I thought next logical fill-in is our colleague Brian Nadeau, because yesterday Brian and I went over the full card, and so I thought it was a great follow-up just to see what he thought, and we'll get some opinions on the stakes action from yesterday. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Has there ever been someone least underdressed than the guy he's replacing on the show? I mean, I wish I had paid more attention when you asked me to come on.
The control room appreciates that as well.
Oh, my goodness. He's going to text me, and what are you wearing on the show? I was going to have a 5-piece suit. Oh, boy, but happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here. Yeah, you nailed it. Very good. Let's start out, and just before we get into the stakes itself, and we'll go backwards through the program, starting with the Belmont and working back, because it was a great day of racing. But that's what I want to touch on. Before we start, I'd love to hear your overview. Yesterday, the weekend, and the Triple Crown Series as well, because I thought yesterday was a great capper, a real exclamation point on a really nice Triple Crown season. I thought the racing yesterday, and really through the 3 days, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they had a little weather Friday, but I thought the racing was great. Yesterday down there, weather-wise, was gorgeous. You mentioned that on the Handicappers Report. It was kind of a mid-season Breeders' Cup with all the divisions being pretty much represented. And we certainly saw performances that will play up the turnpike in a few weeks. They'll be worth remembering up at Saratoga. We had performances that have, at the mid-season point, put some horses at the tops of their divisions. We'll talk about those as we go along. But then going back to the Triple Crown itself, they had 11,000 yesterday. You were probably watching. You've been there at the Belmont Stakes, and we commented here in the studio. We've been down covering it a number of times for Capital OTB. It was 11,000. It was a nice crowd. It wasn't a typical Belmont crowd. It didn't have that jammed-in kind of, elbow room, no elbow room feeling to it. But it was nice to see people on the track, as it was at Pimlico, as it was at Louisville. We're getting closer and closer to normalcy, and knock on wood, I think in a few weeks we're going to be really close to it up at Saratoga, and I'm sure the folks at NYRA got some ideas on how to better work their plans given the crowd they had yesterday. But again, going back to the Triple Crown now, we didn't have a Triple Crown, and I think the 3-year-old scene maybe got a little more solidified yesterday, at least on the top. But otherwise, it has been a Triple Crown season that has been a little bit in flux. But, boy, it was great racing. And the Bob Baffert story took about a wind out of the sails for about a week. It still overshadows things a little bit, but going back to Louisville, Pimlico, and then yesterday and the days leading up to it at Belmont, I thought 3 great weekends of racing that really, reflected well on the game and had racing fans very excited. Again, what were your reflections yesterday and Triple Crown season overall?
Yeah, I mean, it was so good to see people at Belmont yesterday, right? I mean, normally there'd be one more number in front of the one. Normally they'd have 110,000, but just to see people back in a New York track, because obviously, New York as hard hit or harder hit than anywhere in the country with COVID. So that was so good to see. And as far as the Triple Crown as a whole, Seth, I do think it was just really good racing. Let's just take the Baffert thing out of play. It's over and done with. Good riddance to him. But the races in and of themselves were just really, really good. And I think it's always good when the major players, acquit themselves nicely. And in the Derby, Mandaloon gets back on the beam, and Hot Rod Charlie runs a cracker, and an Essential Quality is a good fourth. And then the Preakness Midnight Bourbon answers the bell, and here's Rombauer now. We know who he is. And then here comes the Belmont, and Essential Quality gets back on the beam, reaffirms his status as the best 3-year-old in the country, and Hot Rod Charlie runs, I said, the best second in a decade, the best second in any race since Bodemeister in the Derby, and Rombauer ran pretty well too. So it sets us up for, we're always biased and we're always looking ahead as fans and handicappers, and especially as Capital OTB employees. So we always like to look ahead, and boy, doesn't it set us up for one heck of a Saratoga?
It really does. Like I say, we had some horses that moved to the tops of their divisions, and you have to expect they will try to solidify those positions up at Saratoga. And I've said it a million times over the past year. There were really great performances last year. Swiss Skydiver, Tisdalaw, Alabama, and Travers, Gamine, amongst others, up there last year. And it was just so sad that fans couldn't be there. Because I had Todd Pletcher on yesterday, and he said what I've always said: Saratoga fans are so knowledgeable. A big performance happens on the track. A horse comes back to the winner's circle. They get the applause and the recognition they deserve. So it was kind of sad that the fans weren't there last year. But this year we'll be able to see those big performances in person. And just walking around town the past month or so, people are ready for it. Everybody said, "Oh, I missed it so much last year." It's going to be fun to see, opening day and over the first few weeks, what happens up there. The town itself is back to life at night and whatnot, so it's going to be fun to see. But there will be a lot of good performances to watch. Let's jump in. Let's go to the Belmont Stakes. And I called for the entire race because it's worth looking at, given the way the pace scenario played out. And as you say, and I think it is a near unanimous consensus, Hot Rod Charlie ran, you put it great, probably the best second in a decade. It was phenomenal, given the early fractions. I think everybody thought Rock Your World would go out and set the pace. Rock Your World's the number 7, but Hot Rod Charlie with Flavian Prat says no, and Hot Rod Charlie goes out and sets a 22 and a 46 and change. And in a mile and a half, you have to feel like, oh, they're coming back. Well, Rock Your World, who was sitting second early on, does wind up running 6th in the field of 8. But Hot Rod Charlie, when they come down the stretch, gives Essential Quality all he can ask for. Now, I thought Essential Quality was the best 3-year-old going into the race, and so I tilted towards him on that. And I think he did acquit himself in that fashion coming down the stretch. So it'll be Essential Quality, Hot Rod Charlie. I wasn't a believer in Rombauer. He winds up 3rd, and I had played some triples for the bankroll team yesterday. If Known Agenda had gotten up to 3rd, that would have helped us out a little bit. But again, I took a little bit of a stand against Rombauer, so I give him credit for following up the Preakness win with a decent 3rd yesterday. The disappointment was probably Rock Your World, but he did fade after those early fractions. Otherwise, there were logicals up in the first 3 spots, but Essential Quality gets it done. Again, solidifying his position at the top of the 3-year-old rankings. And I will say he came out of it, I think, helping to solidify that situation. He came out of it with a 109 buyer, which was clearly the best buyer of his career by far. And added a legitimate triple-digit buyer to the 3-year-old scene, where they've been having trouble coming up with triple-digit buyers, certainly in the 109 range. So it's a big performance from the winner, but as you say, it was also a huge performance from the runner-up. Your thoughts?
Yeah, just actually while you were talking, I went to the website to see the buyers from yesterday. I was unaware. I mean, I figured it was a solid number. That's a number. That's the number that will play, in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Like, that's a big number. I bet Rod Charlie, but I think I can step back and still be subjective in these things. But boy, how much the best was he? I mean, my goodness, he ran just an absolutely epic race. And Essential Quality sat back and watched it all unfold. And you said it perfectly. Rock Your World, he was beating a furlong, Seth. And here's Hot Rod Charlie, fighting a perfect Dream Trip winner, Essential Quality, tooth and nail to the lane. And the other thing, too, is, as well as Rombauer ran, he was well behind in third. So the top two clearly separated themselves. It was an awesome race. I read some things afterwards. I was personally stunned at the strategy, and apparently Flavien Prat said to Doug O'Neill, I'm going in the paddock. The track was speedy all day. Some people thought the inside wasn't good, and then Silver State, we'll talk about that in a little bit, comes up the rail to win the Met Mile. So, the track seemed fine. It was fast. It was just a throwdown race, Seth, and it was for 1.5 miles. And I just, you don't see that. It was an awesome race on both parts. I mean, both horses ran huge. Kudos to Brad Cox. And, this was always the plan after the Derby. And I was in the camp that I did not think that Essential Quality had all this crazy trouble that people said in the Derby. You've got the best horse. You're an undefeated 2-year-old champion. Stalking 3-4 wide, it's not that bad of a trip in a 20-horse field. So I just personally thought he was a little flat in the Derby. I thought he hung a little bit in the stretch. But clearly in the Belmont, that Tappet came out. 4th winner, I think, for Tappet in the Belmont, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And Mandaloon's going to do the Haskell thing, and he's going to keep maybe at 9 and not 10. And we're going to get some second half 3-year-olds. And Doug O'Neill credit to Doug O'Neill. He likes running his horses. I would think the last Saturday in August we'll have a bullseye in the Travers, but I don't think there's any doubt that Essential Quality going 10 furlongs in the Travers will take some beating.
Yeah, it was a big performance that, again, kind of solidified his position on top. I still think it's in flux. Well, I'll ask you. I think I'd have trouble coming up with a solid number 2 at this point.
Yeah, if you had to rank them, I'm in that NTRA poll. I haven't voted yet. I mean, how do you play it? It's a good question. We'd have to do another show to talk about it. Anthony and I talk about things like this. I mean, technically, Mandaloon won the Kentucky Derby. I mean,
yeah.
So,
but again, when you're doing those polls and year-end kind of things, you do have to factor it was a move up, kind of a win, which hasn't been decided yet, by the way. But I'm assuming it's probably a foregone conclusion, but that may be a bad assumption. I don't know. But Hot Rod Charlie, I mean, yeah, you would have to factor him off a decent Derby and the big second-place finish.
Yeah.
But the win is the Louisiana Derby, so it's only one win so far this year. So, like I say, for me, if I was in one of those polls, it would be tough separating them out after Essential Quality.
Yeah, and then, Rombauer won a Classic, so...
which may be enough to put him in the second spot.
No, but, if some people, and I don't necessarily disagree, say, well, there's only 3 Classics, he won one of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's tough. I guess I'll probably vote Essential Quality, Mandaloon, Hot Rod Charlie, and Rombauer, I guess, would be my top 4.
Yeah, that sounds logical. Yeah, that's interesting. And as I say, top of the class for Essential Quality, one of those horses that on the day did move to the top of his division and kind of solidified that. And we'll see how it plays out over the summer. That's what makes it fun. Now, once the Triple Crown gets over, there's that mid-season of 3-year-old races that become very intriguing. Haskell, Jim Dandy, Travers, Pennsylvania Derby. It's going to be fun to see how those play out, and if some other horses can step up, if Essential Quality holds on to his position. But as the Triple Crown ends, he is, at the mid-year mark, he's at the top of the class right now. All right, let's go back and look at some of the other action on the day yesterday. I have to admit, sometimes you go back and you look and you kind of kick yourself a little bit. And I don't know whether necessarily this is one of those positions. I was not convinced on domestic spending in the Manhattan. I had it sussed out other ways. I had Masterpiece on top, who went off as a big price, and I played around with that one in the bankroll, and if he had done something, we would have been very happy. Masterpiece wound up 14-1, but winds up running 6th. And there were some points in the race where I thought, I'm in a decent position. Masterpiece here is the number 5, and you can see makes up a little ground in the stretch. But leading here is Tribhuvan. Coming on late, though, is Domestic Spending, and Domestic Spending will get it done as the 3-2 favorite for Chad and Klarovich. Tribhuvan for Chad runs second in here, and Clemence Gouffo, another one that I wasn't totally convinced on, runs third. So I was on the outside looking in here. Colonel Liam, disappointing, runs 8th in the field of 10 as the second choice at 7-2. But as I say, this one I was searching around a little bit and wound up on the outside looking in with Domestic Spending. Lightly raced for Chad Brown. This is a 4-year-old with only 6 starts going into the race. 5 wins, however. As a buyer's guy, I thought maybe the numbers were a little light, but certainly now, after the first couple of starts, that big performance, the dead heat down at Churchill in the Turf Classic to kick off the season in this one, he is floating around with only the 2 starts, maybe not enough, but he's certainly in the conversation for being at the top of the turf division right now.
Oh, I don't think there's any conversation. He's a month the best turf horse in the country. He might not have necessarily the resume right now, but yikes, he's awesome. I think we all knew, I know you did, and I agreed with you. We never picked Colonel Liam, and he just wins every time. But we talked yesterday morning, and I think we both agreed we're not going to pick him again. And, I think it was very obvious that Domestic Spending ran a much better race at Churchill in the Turf Classic, dead heating with Colonel Liam. And that was proven in aplomb yesterday because, wow, he was awesome. And you just saw the replay there, and Tribhuvan, he wasn't stopping, by the way, either. He ran a huge race. And Domestic Spending went by him like he was tied to a pole. So, this horse now is boy, he's really good. He's like bricks and mortar good. And like you said, he's run 6 times, Seth. He's run 14, 15 times. He's still figuring this game out. He's still getting better. I would assume it'll be interesting. Chad always, was I don't want to say hesitant, but always questioned the 1.5 miles with bricks and mortar. I haven't heard or talked to Chad about this horse. I wonder his feeling on this horse because, we've got the sword dancer in our backyard going the 1.5 miles, or is he an Arlington Million kind of horse? Or what does he do with him? But there ain't no turf course in the country that's anywhere close to this one. That's for sure. I mean, that was a definitive effort yesterday. It was a freakish effort. I just looked. He ran a 106. Yeah. That's a big number for a turf horse. And 5 for 6, as you said, Seth, only getting better. And someone's going to have to do a whole heck of a lot of running to get to that kind of level, or he's going to have to come back. Colonel Liam, just really bad, right? I don't know if maybe he got taken out of his element, Seth. I don't know. It was a funky kind of race with Tribhuvan going way out there, and it kind of strings out the field, and it takes you out of your comfort level and maybe makes you make different kind of decisions or what have you. But he was pretty bad for no real apparent reason. So we'll have to see what Todd does with him, if maybe he needs a break or what. He's gone to the well a lot of times, and he's answered the bell a lot of times, and just maybe he needs a little freshening. I don't know, but it was really, listen, we didn't like him. I know you didn't pick him on top. I didn't pick him on top. We certainly didn't think he was going to be that. Would you say eighth? I mean, that was surprising.
Yeah. Again, I've been against him all year long, and he just gets it done every time. There's like a will to win, but did not have it yesterday. Domestic spending, as they say, took a little shot against him. Most handicappers had him somewhere in the mix. I was on the outside, as they say, looking in, and after the race, again, kind of kicked myself because he did look very good. And as you say, the 106 buyer solid as well. All right, let's go back to really one of the best races year in and year out. Certainly a race that makes stallions, as they say, the Grade 1 Met Mile, $1 million up for grabs. It was a nice competitive field going in yesterday. I thought Knicks Go was the one to beat, and the betting public thought Knicks Go was the one to beat as well, making the Knicks Go the 4-5 favorite. Did have the early lead, winds up fading to fourth. So a disappointment for Knicks Go. Silver State, however, a horse I've liked all year long, and coming out of a 101 buyer win in the Oaklawn Handicap. That was at 1 1/8, cutting back to a mile. I had him underneath in the mix a little bit. I had it Knicks Go, Mischievous Alex, and then Silver State. But for Ricardo Santana and Steve Asmussen getting it done, and as we can see here coming under the wire, pretty convincingly. I mean, I don't know whether in the last eighth you had any worries if you had Silver State. By my standards, nice second place finish for that one, coming out of a win in the Oaklawn Mile to start the season. And Mischievous Alex runs third in here. Silver State, 100 buyer on the head. And I will note also, hats off to Ricardo Santana, who was in that freaky race at Churchill the day before where the horse went through the inside rail and Ricardo Santana fell off. The horse eventually ran around and they caught the horse. And I guess Santana got up and walked off because he was in the next race at Churchill Downs. But again, it just says how tough these guys are to have a spill like that the day before and come back and win the Met Mile the next day. But a nice win for Asmussen and company with Silver State.
Yeah, this horse just keeps on winning, right? I mean, you said it, Seth. He ran 100, so you kind of thought, and I picked Knicks Go. I thought he'd be really tough to beat. If Knicks Go doesn't win the Met Mile, then, kind of all heck breaks loose and anybody can win it. And you probably would have guessed maybe the winner would run 100 because, nobody else in here is running to Knicks Go's level when he's Knicks Go. Maybe Mischievous Alex, but the mile was a real question mark. Yeah. Knicks Go, I don't want to say he got eliminated at the start, but boy, did you see it, Seth? Did you see the head on? It was really bad. I didn't see it. I didn't pick up on it watching it live. They went back and showed it, and by my standards, really came off and just really, it was like worse than Essential Quality in the Derby. It was really, really a good whack and took him out of his comfort zone, I think. He went up, but he was also just really flat, and he was really not very good, to be honest with you. I mean, on that track going, I'm looking at it here, when Knicks goes 23-1, 46-1, and he's not really getting that much pressure, if you think it's named the score time. So certainly he didn't fire, but yeah, kudos to Ricardo Santana and Steve Asmussen. Silver State just keeps on keeping on, and I watched it with a friend, and we were talking, and you just don't see horses win 6 races in a row anymore, and you certainly don't see them do it at this level. So kudos to him, and now he's in the Horse of the Year discussion. Obviously, there's a lot of heavy lifting left. But the other cool thing I think about Silver State, again, for our purposes, he's won at 2 turns. He is a 2-turn horse. He won the race at Oaklawn. So you would have to think, Steve and the connections you would think the Whitney is all systems go. I didn't hear, I didn't read, don't know, but you would think that's highly on the radar. So for our purposes, it's going to be exciting. I know Brett Calhoun, he told me personally he wants to win a Grade 1 with By My Standards. He'll be in the Whitney. He was second in the race last year. So now we're starting to get to Saratoga, and it's getting exciting for our purposes because we saw horses yesterday at Belmont, Silver State and By My Standards, run huge. And listen, Knicks Go will be back, all things being equal, and first start back from the Saudi Cup on February 20th. So, Brad's going to build off this, and he'll move forward. And I would think, he's got to be looking at the Whitney as well. So I think the division might still be in flux a little bit with Maxfield running in the Foster, and I know Mike Stidham wants to keep Mystic Guide going 10 furlongs, but it's a pretty exciting division right now, Seth, in the handicap division, with a lot of horses that are going to have to throw down against each other at some point.
You made a great point, though. How many times in the handicap division in recent years have you seen a 6-race win streak like this, particularly with a horse that I don't think is on the tip of everybody's tongue necessarily,
right,
but he swept that handicap division series down at Oaklawn, and now you add the Met Mile. He'll be interesting to watch throughout the summer. His stock, obviously, with a Met Mile win, raises significantly, and it'll be interesting to see next start for him. Knicks Go, last race was the Saudi Cup, and for years, a handicapping angle was, those races in Dubai. The first race back, you would always kind of toss out. I'm not sure that plays as much in recent years, particularly when you get the layoff like this one has had to recuperate from. That was back in February, so certainly had time. And also, when you look at those workouts, it seems like he was back on his toes. So I don't know whether the trip to Saudi was the real excuse in here.
No, I agree with that, Seth. I think the start was a big excuse.
Yeah.
If you see it, watch the head on. It was really problematic. He was just flat though too. Like I said, yes, he had a brutal start, but at the end of the day, he was still freewheeling, going 23-1. And when you look at his past performances, you look at the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. That is, like I said, that is named the score time for Knicks Go, especially. And this is no disrespect to Silver State or any of these horses. They weren't remotely close to Knicks Go going at least a mile or longer. And, it kind of shows it. If Knicks Go runs his typical 105 or what have you, he's an easy, comfortable 2.5 length winner of the Met Mile. He didn't. He came back for whatever reason. Here's Silver State, kudos to those guys. He was in the right spot at the right time. Didn't really run a huge race, but he gets it done. He gets it done, as you said, pretty comfortably in the lane, Seth.
Yeah, and as you noted with those early fractions, you did have to, if you were a Knicks Go fan, you did have to feel like, oh, it's in the back pocket with that, because at his level, those were fractions that he should have held on with. So we'll see what the Knicks Go. I would expect a rebound. But we'll watch that one, and it's going to be fun to see what Silver State does. All right, let's go back to the Jesse game. This was a nice little result for the bankroll team, and a nice little result for me. I originally had Blowout on top. That one scratched, so I subsequently scratched into the number 9 Summer Romance, Althika, the number 8, the 2 European horses in the top 2 spots, and they come down the lane and reverse at decent little prices of 7-1, both of them. So it was a nice little reverse exacta for my thoughts. I said it when I handicapped this one out in the race book for the bankroll team. You go back 10 years, these would be the kind you would have landed on automatically. Group level European runners coming over and trying ours. For me, over the past at least 5 years or so, but maybe going back closer to 10, the American runners on the turf have been a little more potent as compared to the European runners when they come over. So I don't automatically go in that direction, but it worked out yesterday, certainly. 2 Godolphin runners weren't running 1-2 for trainer Charlie Appleby. And we have a buyer number of 101 for Althika in the Jesse game, as again, the 2 European runners get it done in there. What were your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot going on here, Seth. I mean, for trip handicappers, my biggest play of the day was Regal Glory. Go back. She was probably going to be lone speed, or she was either that or going to be right off the winner. She completely blew the start and was last. So it totally, at the start, instantly threw the race and kind of up in the air a little bit, and that one of the pace players was not to be found because she was dead last.
Well, read the trouble line kind of says it all. Bump start keen, which often happens with a horse that wants to lead and gets a bad start. Then you're in a bad situation automatically. 3 to 5 wide, 7 wide at the quarter pole. That's not a trip you want.
It was sickening, Seth. As a guy, like I said, my whole day was invested in her. And then here she is going 7 wide and running 4th. I mean, it was an epic effort. I think that the winner, especially the top 2 horses, as you alluded to, I think they really benefited from a couple different angles. There was plenty of give in the turf course. So I think that
because
helps.
It rained bad on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, so I think that was A, first and foremost, and probably Seth, B, this wasn't your dad's just a game. It was a solid group. Don't get me wrong. These were not legitimate, top of the line grade 1 kind of stakes fillies and mares in here. Because to be perfectly honest with you, and I'm a guy that, is very in tune, as you know, in the European game, the top 2 are not much in Europe. So kudos to Charlie Appleby and Godolphin for realizing this was a race there for the taking, and we might have a couple of girls that could play at this level in America. And they came over here and they showed everyone their heels. And if sometimes it's easier than we make it look. I'm going to pull up this chart here, and if you just take the 2 European fillies for arguably one of the most prolific owners in the history of the sport, you got a $82.50 exacta. That's not bad, So both of those horses ran huge, and they did it with different styles too, right? Summer Romance freewheeling on the lead, running very, very fast over that course, and Althea coming from well back of, and still Summer Romance holds well. So 2 big efforts by the top 2. It'll be interesting to see what they do with these gals out. Do they stay here? Do they look at the Beverly D? Do they look at the Diana? How far do they want to run? Don't forget, this isn't a true two-turn race here in the Just a Game. Now, conversely, everything going forward is going to be 2 turns. So it'll be cool. It'll be interesting to see. Do they go back home or what's being done? But they were really good yesterday. No doubt about it.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see where they choose to go with the summer of some nice races in this division coming up. Also worth noting, as you say, with the come-from-behind move, the winner, Althea, Mike Smith on board. So the venerable Mike Smith over the past, the Triple Crown season, the nice stakes weekends we've had. John Velasquez, the Churchill and Pimlico, Mike Smith with a nice win yesterday. So the veterans having some big weekends. And I don't know whether I said Althea 101 buyer win in the Just a Game. So as you know, it'll be interesting to see what they do choose to do with the top 2 finishers. One of the highlights on the day yesterday was the Ogden Phipps. Fell apart a little bit with the early scratches, certainly of Swiss Skydiver, but when Valiance came out, left only a field of 5. But you still had Latruska, you still had She Dares the Devil, and Bonnie South. I didn't realize it until we got into the day, and I was looking at other handicappers and listening to other folks talk. The word was out on Bonnie South. Clearly, everybody was, hey, I got the tip. So Bonnie South was taking a lot of action, which I think was based on the video workout of Bonnie South and Essential Quality, kind of ding-donging it in a workout about a week ago. But I think that must have played into it a lot of it. But Latruska, the number 3 on the front end, takes them all the way around. Bonnie South, the number 7, runs second. She Dares the Devil runs third in here, but Latruska with a 103 buyer and a chart margin of just under 3 lengths. Another one of those horses that yesterday solidified her position at the top of her division.
How good is she, huh, Seth? Oh, I mean, they didn't give it to her. And Bonnie South ran well to be second, to come from where she did to be second. But boy, is Latruska just raging form right now. I mean, she is awesome. 2 turns, 1 turn, it doesn't matter. And She Dares the Devil came in top form too, off the grade 1 at Churchill, and she swatted her like she was a $50,000 claimer. I mean, this was an awesome performance. And not only that, don't forget too, Seth, I think a lot of us were probably leery of Latruska after that throwdown in the Apple Blossom with Monaco. Does she regress a little bit? Does she come back? Does she bounce? No, she just blows the doors off this field again. And boy, like I said, she's proven it at 2 turns as well. So we're seeing the versatility, and she is so good right now. And she backed up that one, that win over Monomoy girl, and it's hard to argue with anybody that thinks she's the best filly in the country, right? Filly and mare in the country right now, because she just keeps on keeping on and proving it. And a great job by her connections to take her from, she was an honest stakes kind of horse last year, Seth. I think we all know that and knew that, but boy, she has reached a different level this year, and she is awesome. Hopefully, we'll see her in the personal ensign up at Saratoga, because that would be a great. Fausto Gutierrez, that was the name I was looking for. Excuse me. He's done a phenomenal job with her, and she's put herself now into the equation, probably as the clubhouse leader for an Eclipse Award right now.
Yeah, I'd have to think they show up for the personal ensign. And I'm excited to see her, and excited to also see Swiss Skydiver get back in action. She came up with a little temperature the day before, but Kenny McPeak subsequently later in the day showed her out, eating some grass and seeming to have rebound. But in those situations, they have to treat those kind of horses. You get a temperature, so subsequently, you have to kind of make the scratch there. So we'll look for Swiss Skydiver down the road. But boy, Latruska, really impressive. I meant to bring up, and I wrote it down here, because you mentioned you follow European racing. The Europeans had won that Just a Game. Dan from the control room brought it up to me yesterday. He said, did you see the Oaks on Friday? Snowfall. Did you see that Oaks? And for folks, maybe you guys can pull it up and show the run here, because it's a pack. Snowfall is in the midst of a pack as they're, I don't know, not more than a furlong out, it seems. And then all of a sudden, she gets like a jet pack on and opens up, and I think I read it was a record margin of victory.
16, right? I think.
It was just incredible. And as I say, this was the Epsom Oaks from the weekend. It was Epsom Derby and Epsom Oaks weekend, but Snowfall, just wow. I mean, this was some performance, and we'll see it here, because as I say, it's a pack until they get to, I don't know, the last furlong or so. And to see a horse accelerate like that from, a quality group and just kind of open up and run away and turn around and wave goodbye the way she does, it was just phenomenal.
You said it perfectly. Good job, guys, pulling this up, too. You said it perfectly, because it was a pack. They're all just, everybody's just hanging out together, and then she just blows it open. Seth, she was 1 for 7 last year. She was a maiden winner. That was it. She was probably 20th in the barn in terms of 2-year-old fillies for Aidan O'Brien. So clearly she's really blown up and blossomed at 3, and this was just an otherworldly performance.
It's crazy.
The acceleration, and to see what she did, as you mentioned, everybody's just, together, and then bang, they asked the question, and she just blows this race open. You can see, obviously, they all went to the outer rail, too, which is very, I'm watching it now on my screen. I know it's just weird to see that's how it had happened, but wow, she was just awesome, and just another Aidan O'Brien. She's Japanese bred too, actually. So,
Deep Impact, yes.
Seminole. What's that?
Deep Impact, is that right?
Danny
says yes. So the great Deep Impact.
So like I said, she was looking at it now. She was 1 for 7. Not only was she 1 for 7 last year, Seth, she ended the year running 5th, 9th, and 8th at twice at the Curragh, and then in the Phillies Mile at Newmarket. So clearly, with distance and maturation, she's turned into a different filly, because she entered this off a Group 3 win at York in the Musadora that comfortably. But how about this, Seth? The win at York last time, she was 14-1. So this is, I don't want to say crazy surprising. She was 9-2. She was 11-2, 5.5-1 yesterday in the Oaks. So yeah, just another superstar in the making for Aidan O'Brien. And clearly, this is like we see with our horses now. Who's bridging the gap from 2 to 3? Yeah. Clearly been one of them, Yeah,
but I'm glad we got a chance to see that, because it was just so crazy. Like I say, it was just about a furlong out. She starts going, and a gap like that in that distance was incredible. Subsequently, in the Derby the next day, it was a little bit of an upset. I was in here because we were showing it yesterday. I talked a little bit about the race before it went on. And the horse that ran second at, I think, 53-1, I said, this horse is a little bit interesting, but the winner was not on my radar, so there was no exacta in the mix for me. But, some interesting races from across the pond as well. All right, let's move on. Oh, before we leave the Ogden Phipps, I just did want to mention, boy, it was unfortunate for Irod Ortiz, who, was in the spill a few days ago and will be out a couple of weeks. But his brother fills in. I guess you can feel good for your brother. Jose Ortiz took up the mount on Latruska and gets the win in the Phipps subsequently. All right, let's move a little bit earlier. The Jaipur. I've said it before, this is a race worth paying attention to because it does seem to play in some turf races up at Saratoga every year. You mentioned it yesterday. Nice to see a Grade 1 attached to this race because I think it is deserved given what we've seen, over the past decade or so. But the Jaipur yesterday, I took a little shot with Lee Einsiedler's horse. You know him, I know him. You said you texted him after the race. I texted him after the race and took a picture of the OTB 1 sheet. I said, hey, you made me look like a genius there, Lee. At 10-1, Casa Creed, coming out of a nice win in the Elusive Quality with a decent 99 buyer. I thought, I'll play around with this horse a little bit and take a shot against Bound for Nowhere. Casa Creed, the number 2, makes him just, we were rooting it because the bankroll team had it too. You can see the number 2 horse coming here on the outside, and there was a lot of rooting out in the race book. He gets up and gets it done. Bound for Nowhere, the 6 will just get caught late by Chewing Gum at 28-1 for Chewing Gum. But Casa Creed at a $23.60 mutual. I was happy for Lee. When you have a horse like this and you're kind of shipping around, they took the shot in the Kilroe Mile, but they get a Grade 1 on the resume in the Jaipur yesterday, and it was a nice performance from the Mott trainee.
Well, I think you said it perfectly, Seth. This horse has danced a lot of dances, and he's done different things. I mean, he was a 3-year-old turfer that ran well, 2 turns, 1 turn. Now he cuts him back to 6, and man, he was shot out of a cannon. Bound for Nowhere, I mean, to me, and he was a single for me. I said it on the show. There was absolutely no speed in this race whatsoever. And when Bound for Nowhere is out there doing that, I mean, he's not supposed to lose. But he came unglued a little bit in the lane. But listen, all of them, ran well. But Casa Creed, like I said, he was in a different world in deep stretch. So Bill Mott's done a great job with this horse. There's no surprise there. I mean, he's the ultimate horseman. And as I said, I texted Lee. You know him well, and he's one of the good guys. We like him. He's always been good to us. And I don't know if you saw it. I happened to be out and about having an adult beverage. And so they had the NBC feed on. I don't know what channel was on at that point. But anyway, Mike Francesca, who's a very close friend to Lee, is co-owner of this horse. So they interviewed him as well. So, yeah, it was cool to see. And here's another horse now, Seth, that we keep. Where does this horse go, right? Because I think the best race we've got at Saratoga, I think, is the Grade 3 Troy. So, what do they do with Casa Creed now? But he's a very versatile horse. He's like the Latruska.
Well, he tried the 4-star Dave last year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back in that, perhaps.
Yes, that's the spot. I think you're right. And just, I can't get it right with Casa Creed. I've needed him so many times. I needed him for a 5-figure rainbow at Gulfstream, and he runs big and runs second. I played him in the Shadwell last year, and he was a good I can't guess right with this horse. I'm happy for you. It was a great pick on your part. I think he was 9-10-1, Seth?
Yeah, 10-1. You got $23 and change on him. So yeah, it was a nice performance all the way around, and it'll be interesting to see. But another one, yeah, he'll be at Saratoga one way or the other because Lee is there all the time, and I'm sure he wants to win. And I'm sure he'd love to get a Grade 1 up at Saratoga. A Grade 1 anywhere is a lot of fun, but up there, I'm sure he would be extra thrilled. So we'll look to see if he shows up. And as I say, I think this race in and of itself plays into Saratoga turf races virtually every year. So, and he comes up with a 105 buyer. That's a pretty legitimate number. Yeah, very good.
That's the number that will win the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprints. I mean, that's just to give everybody a perspective. That's a serious number for a turf sprint.
The Acorn Grade 1 event for the 3-year-old fillies, one of the top 3-year-old filly races every year. It's the 1-turn mile. You were on obligatory last time, and at 16-1, you had him as a best bet on the 1 sheet. Great call. I became convinced off of that race, so I was using obligatory. I had search results right underneath, and day out of the office in the 3rd spot yesterday. Obligatory is going to run second at 5-1, but search results, And out of the really nice performance behind Malathat in the Kentucky Oaks was the one to beat. And Search Results gets it done. Half a length here at 4-5. The betting public was on it. Obligatory second. Make Mischief third. Day Out of the Office fourth. Travel Column fifth. But Search Results, again, getting it done. 95 buyer. And it was a nice day. This one in domestic spending. Really nice day for Seth Klarman and Klarovich.
Yeah, she ran well. I mean, I think Seth, if everybody's going to laud John Velasquez for the job he's done, and this was a really bad ride on Day Out of the Office. I mean, she is going 47-1, freewheeling on the lead when, this is a horse that could go 44 and change if she wanted to. She just chased that at Churchill. So he let this entire field stick around, and it turned into a turf race off the far turn. I just didn't understand it. Like he's like this entering the far turn when he could have spurted and tried to break the race open. And what it did was it kept everybody in the game, and Search Results with her 2-turn form grinds them down. You look at a horse, you said obligatory ran huge to come from last, but she came from last set less than 4 lengths behind because they went so slow early. And he didn't try to string out this field entering the far turn. He just kept them all in the game. They could have went so much faster. And I feel like if he had to do it over again, he should have tried to gut this field entering the far turn. And conversely, like I said, it kept everybody in the game. Search Results grinds them down. This was a good effort, though, Seth. I know, she comes out of, 2-turn races in the Oaks. Yeah, she was the best horse in the race. But it's easier said than done. She just threw it down against Malathat, the best 3-year-old filly, in the country, and a horse who's better at 9 furlongs than Search Results is. So now Chad cuts her back off that big race, and she runs very, very well to get it done here. Yeah, she was 9-10. I understand that, but it's easy. I think sometimes we take those kind of things for granted, Seth. Okay, she's the best horse. Of course she's going to win. Well, it's not as easy as that off such a huge seismic effort in the Oaks, and now we cut back off that effort to 1 turn. So she ran very, very well, and Obligatory did too. I mean, I was dead set against her yesterday. I thought that when the scratch of she's going to run today at Belmont, when the scratch came out of Miss Brazil, I mean, Day Out of the Office was the loose controlling speed, and Obligatory was so much up against it. So to see her run second, come from last. Again, she got helped by the questionable tactics or fractions, I guess you could say. But for see her to come last, she ran very well. Now, Seth, going forward in the tests, when they'll go hellish early, now Obligatory is really going to be a major player in a race like that.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, because it does seem like that is the next logical step for her. It'll be interesting to see if Search Results. I had Todd on yesterday, and Malathat is the game plan is Coaching Club American Oaks and Alabama. It'd be interesting to see if Search Results shows up for a rematch with Malathat, because that will be exciting.
I was, I spent 2 weeks in Louisville for the Derby, and one of my, they assign you a few different trainers, and one of my trainers was Chad, and he was awesome, and he gave me so much time. And now, again, this is after the Kentucky Oaks, and in horse racing, as you know, Seth, that was 4 years ago. But Chad said, right now, if all things being equal, we'll look at the Acorn, and then I'd like to tap, the CCA would be kind of like our spot, because I don't think my filly is a 1.25 mile filly, whereas obviously Malathat would be, and that's her game. But he did say to me, I think, that's a spot. I would not be scared to run this horse against the best going 9 furlongs. So you would think, Seth, that's got to be the big goal, and then maybe the cotillion or something. But he did say to me, I don't think, we're not an Alabama horse. So that says to me, let's get this thing in the Coaching Club. Let's do it again.
Yeah, very good. So a marquee matchup early season up at Saratoga potentially. All right, let's go to the Brooklyn. This was only a grade 2 event on the day, but wanted to pull this one up because it's just fun, these 1.5 mile races, and Lone Rock gets it done, and gets it done pretty easily here. So there's not a whole lot to say, but it's a Robertina Diodoro runner. coming up off a couple of wins, 2 back at Oaklawn, last time at Churchill. Last time was in a little stakes race at Churchill at 1.5 miles. Followed it up yesterday, winning the Brooklyn. Tism Magician second, Moretti third. I liked Ajaweed. I took a little shot there. That one disappointed and ran 7th in the field of 9. But it is Lone Rock getting it done with a 100 buyer figure in the Brooklyn.
I don't know what it says on that video, but when they crossed the line, the time was like 2:25 and something. So I'm just looking at the chart now. Obviously, they corrected it, 2:28 and 4. Man, he ran huge. I mean, he ran 100, so, it's not like a giant figure. It's more the rest of them didn't really run all that well. But, wow, this was very much like that race we showed at Epsom, where they were pretty all kind of together entering the far turn, and he just hit another gear. And these are specialists. I liked Ajaweed, too, and he couldn't answer the bell. These are specialists, but this was a good race, Seth, for what the Brooklyn is. This was a good race. And he turned it all into a laugher. So, obviously, he's in great form for Robertino Diodoro. He claimed this one from Bill Mott. It was a reclaim from Bill Mott. Kind of going back and forth. Bill, Robertino, Bill, now back with Robertino. And we're not going to see this one in for 40 anymore. And he's clearly – I guess it's a division, Seth, because there are races like this, and we've got the Birdstone at Saratoga, but the Brooklyn is the race, and he's the best dirt marathon horse in the country. There's no question about that. There's not many of them, and there's not a lot of races for him, but he's the one whenever they do run them.
I love these races. I wish there were more of them. Unfortunately, There aren't, because as opposed to like a turf sprint, everything doesn't have to go your way, and you can still be in the race. Turf sprint, you get off to a bad start or you have a little trouble into the turn, the race is essentially over. These kind of races, if you've made a bet, you're in it pretty much the whole way around until they get late in the stretch. So I love them, but as you say, there aren't a lot of them out there to follow. All right, and finally, let's take a look at the Woody Stevens. This was another really nice performance on the day. I like Jackie's Warrior in the Pate Mile. Got it done there in just absolutely crazy performance given the early fractions. So I was on Jackie's Warrior again. Jackie's Warrior is going to be the number 3 horse. I thought was going to gut it out right here in the stretch. I thought was going to gut it out and do essentially a Pate Mile thing, go fast early and then maybe not have the same stamina the last furlong, but just have kind of bottomed everyone else out. But that was kind of the game plan, except couldn't bottom out, drain the clock, the Safi Joseph sprinter. I had these two 1-2, but in flip-flop order, so I wasn't shocked by drain the clock. The 7-1 price was very nice. Nova Rag, so I said coming out of the Sam Davis might be an interesting 3-year-old this year. I played a Derby future on that one. Ran an okay third, was well back in third, but it is drain the clock, Jackie's Warrior. As I say, one of the nice performances on the card yesterday. 3-year-old sprint division is a fun subdivision. These horses will play as that year plays out in that subdivision, and I'm just looking it up. Drain the clock yesterday with a 97 buyer.
So you got to go back and watch the start because Jackie's Warrior just got brutalized at the start. So they went 22 flat set for the first quarter. Jackie's Warrior might have went 21-1 to be on the lead.
Clearly gets rushed up to make the lead. Yeah. Here we go. Very good.
Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Watch the start.
Jackie's Warrior's the number 3.
Yeah. Watch what happens to him, and then extrapolate it out when they go 22 flat for the start, and where he came from to be on the lead. At that call was really, really impressive because he took all the worst of it. And Joel didn't really rush him up. I think it was just his natural speed got him there. But he had to work so much harder than drain the clock. With all that being said, you're right, Seth. It looked very, very much like the Pat Day in that he was just going to – they were going to bottom out the field – and he was going to bottom out, drain the clock, and keep on going. They were way out in the track, right, too. And Drain the Clock, kind of re-engages and we'll say re-breaks a little bit and guts it out. And they were a month clear of Nova Rag. So it was a really good performance. And the other thing too, Seth, is that, that 97, you kind of sometimes think you see these big giant figures in this race. It's a pretty good number for Jackie's work because, he only ran a 91 in that race at Churchill. Because they really came home so slowly. So he's moving forward too. Yeah, he didn't win at odds on or even money, whatever he was. But he's moving forward too. And we're going to have a throwdown now in the the Allen Jerkins now at Saratoga, because these are clearly the best 2-3-year-old sprinters now in the country. Drain the Clock, just keeps on winning races himself, and this was a great battle, and I'm sure we'll see them both again at Saratoga. Maybe one of them shows up in the Amsterdam.
That's what I'm thinking. I wonder if maybe we'll get 2 shots at these guys.
Yeah, I kind of think, Seth, in this day and age, for better or worse, we'll see them both back in the Jerkins. It was a heck of a battle here too that they ran, so
for Jackie's Warrior, that's 2 straight now too.
Yeah, so maybe Drain the Clock, but I would think they maybe get a little tiny refreshing, and I'll see you again at the end of August when it's go time again.
All right, that brings us to the top of the hour. We went at perfect timing, but I do want to mention, I was making notes as we were going along. We mentioned it with Latruska. That was an Irod Ortiz horse. Search Results was an Irod Ortiz horse. Castellano got on board there, and Drain the Clock was an Irod Ortiz horse. So I feel bad for the guy that he had to spill the other day and had to sit home and watch 3 of his horses win. That had to be a tough situation, but the good news is he's back in a couple of weeks. But you and I were talking before we went on the air. Also want to alert people, unfortunate incident in the nightcap yesterday. Kendra Carmouche fell off his horse at the start of the race, yesterday's 13th race. Horse kept on running, but Kendrick came out later last night and tweeted out that he'd broken his ankle. So Kendra Carmouche, one of the nice guys on the racetrack, unfortunately, will be on the sidelines for a while.
Yeah, and it's too bad because Kendrick has been in such prolonged, extended good form. He won that title, he won that Grade 1, and it's just a bad time, for these jockeys. They get hurt, and if you're not Irad or you're not Jose Ortiz or the top of the game, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind a little bit. We're seeing it a little bit with Javier Castellano. He went to the sidelines for 2 or 3 months, and he's these guys have trouble now getting some traction, getting back in the game, and horses you used to ride aren't there, or barns that you used to ride might have moved on. So we wish Kendrick all the best. Hopefully he's back sooner than later. Hopefully he can get back closer to the start of Saratoga, because he's one of the good guys too, Seth. And I really like him. He reminds me a lot of Jorge Chavez. You know what you're going to get from Kendrick. He's going to give you his best ride every single time, and he's going to take it to you. And in this day and age, we see it every day. We talk about it every day. We probably complain about it every day too. Seth. A lot of these jockeys don't want to be aggressive early. Kendra Carmouche has won and will win a lot of races because he takes it to you. And in this day and age, that's a very, very good strategy as opposed to the grab and pull and tug and hold. I love his aggression that he shows on the racetrack.
Yeah, hopefully back sooner rather than later. I didn't see he announced he had the broken ankle, but I didn't see any time frame or anything. But hopefully back soon. Hopefully we get to see him, up at Saratoga a little bit this season. Brian, again, appreciate the conversation. Good job. It was a nice weekend, as I say, a nice capper to the Triple Crown season, and now we move on to Saratoga.
Yeah, I can't wait, Seth. Boy, the Belmont ends and it's Saratoga time. I know we've got about five weeks, but it's almost here, and I know how excited you are. You said it at the top of the show too. I get a lot of texts from my guys up there, and town's popping, and everything's kind of a go. And the town was open a little bit last year, but you were there. It wasn't great. Yeah, but now we'll get the fans back at Saratoga in some way, shape, or form. And I can't wait. I mean, I didn't go to the track last year. I could have. Obviously, we taped in the morning, and I just went home. It just, to me, it wouldn't have been exciting. It wouldn't have been the same just to go with a bunch of owners and trainers and just kind of stand there in an empty building, so to speak. So I didn't even go. So I can't wait to get back there as well, Seth, and we'll have some pops at the paddock bar with all our old friends and do our thing in the morning as well. And in normalcy, I it's not 100%, but it's pretty darn close that normalcy has finally returned. And I know you can't wait. I can't wait. Everybody can't wait. And the clock is now ticking.
Yeah, it was hollow last year. I was there pretty much every day up in the press box and walking around the grounds. And hollow may be the best word to describe it. Looking forward to. I think we are going to be fairly close to, again, knock wood, fairly close to normal this year. Looking forward to it. Brian, again, appreciate the visit, the conversation. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk again, obviously, next week on the Handicappers Report.
I'll be better dressed next week, so thank you as well. Steve, I hope if you're watching, you don't beat me up too bad. But always a pleasure, Seth. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad. I like that preview and rewind that you do, and I'm glad to be a part of it because yesterday was an awesome day. So let's run it back next week.
Sounds good. We'll see you then. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Racing Across America. Again, putting the exclamation point on the Triple Crown season, which, again, I said at the top of the show, the racing just overarched everything. It was really great racing. The couple of days down at Churchill, Oaks Derby weekend, then Black-Eyed Susan Preakness weekend at Pimlico, all the undercard stakes, really great performances, and then it was emphasized again Thursday, Friday, Saturday at Belmont, capped off by the nice performance in the Belmont Stakes yesterday by Essential Quality. And again, we are going to see a lot of these performers square off again up at Saratoga. Really looking forward to it. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Don't forget, there's a match bet promotion today here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 7-Eleven, Central Avenue in Albany. We'd love to have you come down. I mentioned at the top of the show with temperatures heading into perhaps low 90s. Come on down and enjoy the air conditioning here at the Racebook, 7-Eleven, Central Avenue in Albany. I'll be back in about an hour and a half or so to kick off a Sunday afternoon, day after edition of racing of OTB Live. So we look forward to you tuning back in again then. But we'll wrap it up for Racing Across America for this Sunday morning. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you later.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.